What's up everyone, Matt here from Native Instruments. Today I'm going to show you how to use everything in the Traktor X1 MK3. But first, here's a bit about the controller. The Traktor X1 MK3 is a cutting-edge, versatile, and modular DJ controller designed to flawlessly integrate with Traktor Pro software. Unleash your creativity with its vast array of features, enabling you to craft distinctive performances through effortless effects control, playback manipulation, seamless looping, mixer mapping, and beyond. Embrace the power of advanced customization and enhanced accessibility to truly make the X1 unique to you. If you haven't checked out the Traktor X1 MK3 yet, head over to nativeinstruments.com or check out the link in the description below. So when you get your X1, this is the packaging it comes in. Super clean. I love how simple it is with the new logos. Let's just open this thing up and check out what's inside. Set those to the side. You get this nice cloth that it comes in. Set that here. And here's your serial number, which you can use to register Traktor Pro 3 inside Native Access. And here you're going to have the power supply. Now, the power supply only has to be used if you're using the USB hub. This thing is bus powered, so you can just plug it straight into your computer and you are ready to rock. But if you're gonna use the USB hub, you're gonna need the power supply. It also makes the LEDs a little bit brighter, which is nice. So that we have all the different connectors for the power supply for multiple different countries. So that's really convenient. If we open this up, there's our USB cable. We're gonna use that to connect it. Let's get this thing out of the carrying case. Super great for travel. There we are, there's the X1. We're gonna take the included USB cable and we're gonna plug the USB side in to the back of the controller, like that. The other side is gonna go to your computer. And there we go, we're hooked up. We have Traktor Pro open. One thing I want to talk about is that 3-port USB hub. If you want to use the hub to connect other USB devices, we wanted to make sure that it can provide sufficient power to all of those. So we've included the power adapter, as I mentioned. You're just going to want to connect that, and now everything will get proper power. So when your X1's plugged into the computer and it's ready to go with Traktor, you're going to get this option for deck setup, and you're going to want to select your decks. And you can use the encoders to browse between different decks. So you can do A and B, C and D, A and C, B and D. You have options, and whenever you're ready to select your deck, you just push in on the encoder, get a little smiley face there, and now you're ready to roll. Before we dive into the X1, let's just talk about the overall design. The Traktor X1 MK3 is in this new sleek black design, and it's slightly larger than the previous X1 models. The bottom of the X1 contains this transparent shell with functional backlighting. And what that means is these lights can actually act as visual cues. So if your track is looped, you're gonna see a green light. If you're slipping out of sync, you're gonna see a red light. And if your track is about to end, you're gonna get a red flashing light. On top of that, these LEDs can be color customized to whatever you want, and you can do some really cool ambient lighting with them. Back on the front, you get 5 OLED displays for essential track information. So when you're changing those different effects, you know exactly which effect you're changing. If you switch over and you're on another effect page and you change these knobs, and then you go back to your effect, you're gonna get these nice visual cues letting you know exactly where that parameter needs to hit before it actually makes the change for the effect. These screens can display tons of different information, from what effects you're using to the pattern player within Traktor Pro Plus. You can also tab over and view your mixer. We're gonna get into this a little bit later on in the video. Down here you have 2 additional displays to show you which track you have loaded, how long is left on the track. You can also see things like your loop amount, what your beat jump amount is, your track's tempo, and pretty much all the information you need right on these screens right in front of you. You'll notice the buttons are drastically larger than the previous X1s. They're all backlit and they all have this nice satisfying click when you push them in, so you know when you're hitting a button. and I love that about this controller. On top of that, we've added these tactile dots for accessibility, so that way you know where you're at on the controller without even having to look down at it. All of these buttons can be color customized to tons of different options within the new Traktor settings page for the X1. Next to these buttons, you have 8 knobs with locked center points, so you know exactly where you are when you need to turn that parameter. We brought back the 4 encoders from the original Mark I X1 that everyone loved, and they are just as satisfying. Every turn and every click, you get that feedback so you know what you're doing. On the bottom here, 20 transport controls, so no more holding shift all the time to access what you need right in front of you. You have so much deck control just right here, from your hot cues to queuing up, syncing your track, nudging, beat jumping, and so much more. On top of that, the X1 is pre-mapped with Traktor Pro 3 software, so you plug it in and you are set to go. If you want to dive in deeper, you can always jump over to MIDI mode and program whatever you want on this device. Now that we've checked out the overall design and flow of the X1, let's dive a little deeper and start with browsing. The browsing is super simple. Using these top encoders, you can browse through different tracks in your collection on either side. If you hold shift and turn the top encoder, it allows you to browse through the tree on the side, and pushing in opens different folders and allows you to browse between them. To load a track into a deck, it's super simple. Find the track that you want, push in on the encoder, and it's there. It also shows you the name and the end time on the screens here. Let's load in another track on the other side. Just like that, our tracks are loaded in. As you can see, browsing is super simple. Now that we have our tracks loaded in our decks, let's talk about these transport controls. Starting here at the bottom, you have simple play and sync. Play does as you would expect it to. You hit play, your track's gonna play, lights up and lets you know that it's on. Next to that, you have sync, where you can just quickly sync your decks together. If you hold sync, it actually shows you your BPM of that deck. And what's really cool is changing this lower encoder actually changes the tempo. And if you want to get even more detailed, if you push in and turn, it's going to change it in more coarse adjustments compared to the fine adjustments of just turning. So that's a nice little feature right there. Above that, we have Q, which just allows you to queue up your track and drop it in like a standard Q button. Next to it, we have reverse. Let's check that out. Simple reverse function. If you hold shift and hit reverse, it turns on flex mode, and that allows you to kind of hop around in your track while always sticking back to the beat. So we can just hit play, and I'll hit some of these different hot cues or turn the loop on. You'll see it always snaps back. So that's a really cool feature, to turn flex mode on just by simply holding shift and hitting that reverse button. Above those buttons, we have these 2 little arrows, and they can be set to different things depending on what you have in the settings menu. I currently have mine default to tempo bend, so if something falls out of sync, I can just quickly nudge it over, so it's just a simple nudge. So if I hit play and hit the arrow, you're going to see how it just does a little bit of shift. 1.6%, not much, just enough to be able to shift things around a little bit. If you hold shift, you can actually use these to beat jump. So let me change the loop amount here. We'll hit play, and I'm going to hold shift and hit the arrows, and that allows me to beat jump through my track. I have flex off. We're going in 4 bar increments. We can change that. 8. So you can set these to default as beat jump or tempo bend, totally up to you, but it's really nice to have the convenience right here. Moving on to our hot cues, which have these tactile dots on 3 and 4. You have hot cues 1, 2, 3, and 4 on each side, and setting them is super simple. You just click on the hot cue, and it's going to take you back to that point. If you want to delete a hot cue, you hold shift and just click it. You'll see the light goes away. If you want to set it again or set it in a different place, you can push the button, and that's it. You have a new hot cue there. So now my hot cue is over here. Let's go to 4. Say I don't like where 4 is, I can just hit shift, delete it, move over a bit, and now we have 4 down here. So triggering hot cues is really easy, and you have 4 on each deck. We checked out the transport controls. Now let's check out these lower encoders, which will probably be the most used ones, your looping encoders. When you turn them on the screen, it shows you what your loop is set to. If you want to set the loop, you simply push it in. And then as I mentioned previously, you get that visual cue on the bottom. It's green, letting you know you have a loop on. You also get a little icon here, and on the screen, it highlights what your loop is set to. To change it, you can just simply turn it, and you'll notice this backlit number showing you that you have a loop active. When it's off and you turn it, you don't get that cue. Another thing you can do is hold shift and turn the encoder, and it's actually going to beat jump through your track by whatever loop length you have set. And you can also change the beat jump amount in the settings menu to be a predetermined value if you want. But while it's playing, let's just check this out. So I'm gonna hold shift. Now you'll see I can jump through. I can change my loop amount. So that's the beat jump. Another cool thing you can do is while holding shift, you can push the encoder in, and what that's going to do is set your loop to where it previously was set to. So you'll notice my loop was set on hot cue 3, and there it is set back there. So if you jump back to the beginning of your song, it'll trigger that loop once it crosses over that point. Now this is one of my favorite features, and it's using hot cues with loops. What you can do is, let's move further down in the track. Let's turn our loop on, set to 16, and then set your hot cue. And now you notice the hot cue button is lit up green, and that's because it's a looped hot cue, and you can set multiple of these. So let's go later on in the track, and maybe we'll change this to an 8-bar, and let's set hot cue 4. And now we have different looped hot cues that you can jump through. Turn your loop off. And then when you jump back to that cue, it turns the loop back on for you and goes to that cueing point. We talked about the deck transport controls. Now let's talk about the effects. Effects are really laid out in the best way possible. And this is the effects section up top here. You have one button in the center which allows you to flip between effect pages. So right now I have effects 1 here. It's my effects slot 1, effects slot 2. Can push it. Then we have effect slot 3 and effect slot 4. Push it again, takes to our mixer, which we're going to touch on. Let's just go back to effects 1. You can have 4 slots of effects with 12 effects total, or you can just do 2 slots, entirely up to you. Those settings are in Traktor's menu. Right now I have 4 slots with 12 effects. Up top you have your activators, so you can push these buttons to turn on effects 1 and 2 for deck A. This turns on 1 and 2 for deck B. If we push the button, same thing. We have 3 and 4 for deck A, 3 and 4 for deck B. The buttons and knobs correspond with each other, and again they're laid out in the perfect format. This top knob is your dry wet amount for the effect group or the effect slot, and it lets you know on the screen where you're at. The knobs below it control each effect. So again, I have 12 effects, so each one of these are going to control the effect. Let's just hit play and mess around with a few of these effects. To turn the effect on, you just push the button. Let's do it. Let's turn these 3 and 4 off. So if you noticed, while I was playing with the effects, these little arrows kept popping up on the screen. And that's an indication to let you know that you need to move the knob either lower or higher to reach the parameter settings, so then you can change or apply the effect. So you'll see if I turn this, it's giving me an indication of, hey, you need to move down to 50%, And once you hit 50, then you can control the effect. So that's a really nice feature just to let you know where you are on the effects parameter. There are some really cool shift functions here. So if I hold shift, the first thing you're going to see is that these lights up here turned on. And that allows you to turn on or off the next effects slots for that deck. So if I tab over to 3, it's because 3 and 4 are turned on for deck A. 1 and 2 are off for deck A. And if I hit shift, that is controlling 3 and 4. So you don't have to tab over to the page to turn those off. You can just hit shift and turn them off. Now you'll see if I go to 3 and 4, they are turned off for that deck. The other shift functions here, this top button allows you to switch between effect group, a singular effect, so you'd have different parameters for just one effect. And if you push it again, the pattern player, which we're going to get to in this next section. The other buttons allow you to switch between different effects in your slots. So right now, this is the beat masher, and if I push it, it's going to change to the delay. If I push it again, it's going to change to the F92 LFO. And that's just a really easy way to switch through different effects, especially if you're only using singular effect slots. And if you're on singular effects, these act as arrows up and down, so you can switch between different effects in your single slots. Those are the effects. I love the visual control on the screens. Really keeps your eyes right here, and that's one of the best parts about the new X1. If you haven't checked out the Pattern Player in Traktor Pro Plus, it's a really unique feature that allows you to build your own drums within an effect slot and layer those with different tracks or different decks that you have going on. So it's like having 2 additional decks to just layer in some cool beats with. So you'll see here on top it says 808 kit. You can turn them on and off. Top knob controls the volume. And if you hold shift, you have those arrows again to switch between different kits. Let's stick with the 808 kit for now. This first button's going to play or pause. First knob controls the volume. And then here, this knob controls the pattern. Let you see what your pattern is set to. The button actually controls the sound. And you can flip between them just like you did with the arrows. Let's leave this one on the kick. Let's add in another one. The knob below that controls the pitch. The knob below that controls the decay. Make it short. Keep it long. And what's really cool is you can also add effects to these. So if we have effects 3 and 4 on, really easy to do some cool custom beats just on your own using the pattern player, and you have full control over that right here on the X1. Next up here we got the mixer. Just as you switch between the effects, you just push that button. Past 3 and 4 you're going to get to your mixer. Here's decks A and decks B. First thing it goes to is the volume, letting you know, hey, those knobs there aren't quite at 100% yet, and if you want to control the volume, you got to get that knob all the way over. The bottom knobs here control the volume. You'll see if I turn it up to 100, that arrow goes away, and now we can control that volume fader. Same thing on this side, just like that. So now we're at 100. These top 3 knobs and buttons control your EQ. Top one is going to be your highs. Next to you have a high cut. Next one is going to be your mids and a mid cut. And then you have the lows and the low cut. The button next to the volume knob for the mixer controls your monitor headphone queuing, so you can just turn that on and off. Again, you get a little icon letting you know what you're queuing up in your headphones. And that's the mixer. It's pretty straightforward, gives you everything you need right at your fingertips. Before I get into some of the alternate settings, I just want to hit play on a couple tracks here, tweak some effects. I want you to see the visual cues and get an idea of how this controller actually functions. So let's do it. Bring in our next track. Sync it. Cut the lows. Watch what happens when we push out of sync. Get that red light letting us know we're out of sync. Then we go out of sync. Push it back in. Green light showing got a loop set. Turn that loop off. Bring in a pattern player. Red flashing light letting us know this track's about to end. We can go back to the mixer and back to the effects. That was just a quick idea of some functions that you can use with the X1. Now I want to go over some of the alternate settings, and to do that, we're going to go into Traktor software, go to our settings menu, then we're going to go down to the X1 MK3 main. And this page allows you to change some of those shift functions or some of the default functions for different encoders or buttons. Let's check those out now. So first you have the browse encoders. As I was doing, when you hold shift and turn the encoder, it changes through the tree. You can change that to browse through your favorites, which is really convenient. For the loop encoders, I use them for beat jump looping. You can change it to adjust the key by semitone. So if you're mixing tracks in key, that's a really great and easy feature to match different keys of tracks. Your hot cue numbers, you can change all those cues to different cues, looping in and out, stutter effects. And again, these are pre-mapped. So all you have to do is change it in the menu and you're set to go. And because there are shift functions with those, you also have options for the shift functions. The nudge buttons, which I love, I use them to bend my tempo, so if something slips out of sync, I can quickly get it back in sync. You can flip those to be permanent beat jump and then shift to do the tempo bend. And then you also have the option to change your displays. So right now, I'm showing the running time of my track. We can change this to elapsed time, how much time has gone through the track. And you can also change that to be loop size by default. And those are just some of the settings. Let's jump down to the X1 MK3 Colors tab, and I can dive into how to customize the X1 with different color changes. We can change our effect buttons to be whatever color we want when we make them purple. Our hot cues, you can have different colors for different cues. Change them to mint or red. Change them all to red. Our nudge buttons, change to blue, which is our default. Our play, we can change to magenta. Sync, lime. So you get the point here. You have lots of color options that you can really make this thing fit your vibe and your style. Now let's change one of my favorite settings, the bottom LEDs. I went ahead and flipped the unit over so you can see it. I mean, look at that. It's so cool. The PCB board with the Traktor logo on it. And the fact that these LEDs are functional for visual cues, which you can turn on and off in the menu, is really awesome. But again, these are totally color customizable to whatever you want. So we can change them to any color. And they are bright, vivid colors. And you have a lot of really cool options to, again, make this your own. And that's how to use everything on the new Traktor X1 MK3. If you want to learn more about Traktor, check out our video series, How to Use Everything in Traktor. You can really dive deep into the program. There's so many cool features. If you want to get your hands on an X1 Mark III, check it out over at nativeinstruments.com. Thanks for watching.